Mark Twain was famous for writing a number of things, like Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and his book on Joan of Arc. You might not know that he wrote a short story that is delightfully hilarious called The Diary of Adam and Eve. A reading from The Diary of Adam and Eve, Adam's Diary, Tuesday. Been examining the great waterfall. It is the finest thing on the estate, I think. The new creature, this woman, calls it Niagara Falls. Why, I'm sure I do not know. She says it looks like Niagara Falls. That's not a reason, it's a mere waywardness and imbecility. I get no chance to name anything myself. This new creature names everything that comes along before I can get in a protest. And always the same pretext is offered. It looks like the thing. There's a dodo bird, for example. She says the moment she looks at it, the moment that one looks at it with a glance, it just looks like a dodo. It will have to keep that name, no doubt. It wearies me to fret about it, and it does no good anyway. Dodo. It looks no more like a dodo than I do. It's worth the read. But it's not the scriptures. Eve was not helping Adam to name the animals. As we heard in Genesis today, it was Adam naming the animals before Eve got there. And that was part of Adam recognizing his own loneliness. It's interesting, as you read the account of Genesis chapter 1, God keeps creating things, and things are always good. The first day he creates things, and it's good. At the end of the second day, things are good. At the end of the third day, it's good. The first time something is listed as not good is at the beginning of chapter 2, or so it's the middle of chapter 2, when Adam recognizes a loneliness in him. And it says that it is not good for man to be alone. It is not good. That's interesting to think about. In paradise, there was something that wasn't good. There's this ache in Adam's heart for relationship, for friendship, for companionship. And so we get this story that we heard today. Adam names all the animals are brought to him. He gets to name them all. He doesn't find a suitable partner among them. So the Lord puts him into a deep sleep. And while he's asleep, the Lord takes a rib from his side, uses that rib to form woman. Adam wakes up. He's in complete shock at how beautiful she is. And he says, "At last, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." And then the author kind of finishes with this little phrase. It says, "For this reason, the man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and the two become one flesh." Now, that narration is not intended to be a scientific narration of how humanity came about. But it does teach us some necessary truths about humanity, about men and women, about our relationship with God. So I just want to look at a couple of those things, because I could probably give an hour-long lecture on this whole passage, because I find it so fascinating. First of all, I love the fact that God uses a rib. He took a rib from Adam's side. He could have created woman however he wanted to. If he created everything else out of the dust, he created Adam out of the dust, he could have done the same thing with Eve. But that might have implied that she's a different kind of a creature than he is. So he took a part of Adam to make her. And I remember maybe 8 years ago, I was leading a Bible study for some high school boys. Leading a Bible study for high school boys is like trying to teach cats. They're just, attention is over there. But they were great kids. I loved them all. And I remember one day, I trying to lead them through a reflection on this passage. And I said, "Any ideas, guys? Why did God create Eve out of a rib? Why did God take Adam's rib?" And one of the kids, in an incredible moment of brilliance, he says, "Well, maybe it's just to be a reminder that Eve is supposed to be at his side." Wow. It's actually really profound for a 16-year-old kid. Well done. Yeah, I think that there's a truth in that. There's a sense that she belongs side by side with him. She's not below him. If she was taken from his foot bone, then maybe he would think he rules over her. If she was taken from his head bone, then she might think she rules over him. So she's taken from the rib to imply equality, actually. Partnership that's there. It's really beautiful. I think there's also an element there of teaching Adam that there's a little bit of sacrifice that was needed. It's not that God created Eve out of nothing. I'm sure that when he woke up, he was amazed at her beauty, and then he realized that his side kind of hurt. He had to offer himself in a way. I realized that he was unconscious when he offered himself, but there was still a gift of himself. There was a part of his own flesh and blood that needed to be given. A sacrifice needed to be made in order for him to experience the depth of love that he's being offered here. And that's how it is with all of us. If we want to experience real depth of love, we have to be willing to make a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice ourselves. We have to put ourselves on the line in some ways. There's a pain in being vulnerable with each other. So there's the invitation to sacrifice that's there. I think there's also a little bit of a lesson that she is his flesh and blood, literally made from his flesh and blood, to show that she's now a part of the family. Like, they are a family unit now. And I wonder if when he would look down and he sees that scar, if he just remembers it's near his heart. Like, the rib came from covering his heart. And he's now supposed to keep his wife near his heart. There's supposed to be a genuine affection that he's supposed to have for her. Keep her close to his heart. And all the same things go the other way around, too. So she's supposed to keep him close to her heart, and she's supposed to recognize that he's part of the family, flesh and blood, and all of that. But I think that there's some lessons that we're being taught here that undergird Catholic teaching about what marriage is. We're always going to point back to the Scriptures. As countercultural as it might be, we've been handed the Scriptures from the Lord, and we're going to take them with seriousness. We're going to apply them to our circumstances and understand this is the Lord teaching us through these things. I love how Jesus even quotes this reading in the gospel. He says a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and the two become one flesh. And then he adds, therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate. It implies that it was God who brought together Adam and Eve. And it's God who unites a man and a woman in marriage. Not just the man and the woman doing that work. God is the one who did that work. And it's a permanent bond. It is a lifelong communion that God has established. And even if they tried to separate it and lived on opposite sides of the world, they're still connected to each other. The Lord is the one who is united to them, and man must not separate it. So I think that it undergirds these teachings for us as Catholics, that marriage is between a man and a woman, that there's an equality between the man and the woman. There's supposed to be a relationship of affection and respect and laying down your life for the other out of sacrifice. There's a lot of richness in this reading to reflect on marriage. What about those who are not married? I'm single. I'm celibate. Actually, I thought about it the other day. I had jury duty, and I had to fill out on the form if I was married or single. Well, I'm celibate. I've been given the vocation of celibacy, which isn't quite being single. The Lord has invited me into a vocation to live as a single person, but it doesn't mean that I'm alone. It is not good for man to be alone. And if you find yourself in a state of singleness, it's not good that you be alone. But that doesn't mean necessarily that the Lord demands that you be in a romantic relationship with somebody, just like he's not demanding that of me. If the Lord is allowing you or inviting you into, even if it's just a season of singleness in your life, it is not good for you to be alone. Jesus lived as a celibate. He lived as a single man. And for Jesus, he wasn't alone. He had a beautiful relationship with God the Father, and he surrounded himself with people who genuinely loved him that he could share his life with. That's what the person in a time of singleness, even if it's the whole life of singleness, that's what we're called to. Intimacy with God the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and then deep relationships with people around us who love us. Because it's not good for a man to be alone or a woman to be alone. We need to have that intimacy. We need to have love in our life from friends, and we'll always have that love with the Lord, even when the friends all abandon us. One thing that really strikes me as I was praying with this morning was the fact that Adam had that wound in his side when Eve was born, and Jesus had a wound on his side on the cross. Jesus dies on the cross, and they thrust a spear into his side. And it's almost like the author of the Gospel of John is trying to tell us that Jesus is another Adam. Just like Adam's wife was born from his side, and he poured out his life for her in some ways. Jesus' wife, the bride, the church, is born from his side, and he has literally poured out his life for her. We are his flesh and his blood. And the Lord is uniting us together, just like he united Adam and Eve to be one flesh. The Lord invites us to be one flesh with Jesus every time we come to Mass. Isn't that crazy to think about? Jesus is the bridegroom, we are the bride, and we are invited into a one flesh union, in a sense, with Jesus. May we never do anything that separates that union that we have with Jesus. What God has joined together, he never wants us to separate. We only separate ourselves from that bond with Jesus by falling into sin. May we always do everything we can to avoid sin so that we can stay in that deep, intimate relationship with Jesus. Because when we receive Holy Communion, we're bonded with him. And what God has joined together, no human being must separate.